And welcome back to Hannity as we continue with former Alaska Governor, Fox News contributor Sarah Palin. All right, so how do you like the idea Julianne Moore will be playing you in an HBO upcoming movie? Your thoughts?
Well, I am all about job creation, and I guess I could provide some of these gals who pretend like they're me some job security. I would ask, though, if they're of the mind of spreading the wealth around, that perhaps they want to spend for one of my kids' sets of braces or something as they capitalize on pretending to be me.
Well, she doesn't really look. I mean, she's a good actress. I thought Courtney Cox, Demi Moore might be a little closer look. No.
Oh, well, I'm absolutely flattered that you would say that, but no, I don't know. I think I'll just grit my teeth and bear whatever comes, what may, with that movie. All
right, let me move on to one serious issue. Newt Gingrich seems to be gearing up. He's going to be running. Tim Pawlenty's going to be running. Rick Santorum's going to be running. Mitt Romney looks like he's going to be running, and any number of other people. And I know a lot of people are wondering, is Governor Palin getting closer to making a decision?
Still contemplating it, Don, because you know it's such obviously a huge life-changing decision to be made. But there are some extremely difficult situations that our country is facing today, and unless I have the confidence that we have a GOP candidate who is out there willing to tackle these issues, regardless of what perhaps some special interests or ties that they may have had in the past to these special interests, if those influence decisions that are being made, unless I'm confident that there is a GOP candidate who can tackle these things and provide solutions, then yeah, seriously, I'll continue to think about it and offer myself up in the name of service. But as I tell you, Sean, national security issues and impending self-imposed energy crisis that is looming, and the fiscal crisis that we face because of a $14 trillion debt and this practice of deficit spending, those are the things that are going to bring America to her knees. So we certainly need the strong, tough, smart leadership that hopefully a GOP candidate can bring.
Does that mean that maybe you would wait a little bit longer and see who gets in the race and then make a decision based on who's in there, whether or not you think you could do a better job?
You know, and that thinking along those lines is unconventional for me, because I have never waited for anybody else to line up and then I jump in at the end. In fact, in my races over the last 20 years, I've usually been the first one to jump in. But in this case, because it is so monumental and so affecting on a family, I probably would wait to see who is willing to put their name forward in the hat in terms of serving this country. And if I'm confident that there are people in there who can engage in healthy debate and a contested, strong primary, then that would go into my thinking as to whether or not to run.
All right, well, we're going to continue to follow the process with you. All right, we just talked about Wisconsin. We talked about NPR. We see that states are facing huge, massive budget deficits. We see the price of oil, which you mentioned, is going up. We have the federal budget deficit. As the Republicans now battle over last year's budget, they want to cut $61 billion. The Democrats only want to cut $4.5 billion of a $3.7 trillion budget with a $1.6 billion trillion dollar deficit. My question is, how do you feel that they are doing, the Republicans now, including the new freshmen, that many of whom you campaigned for? Do you think it's enough by waiting till next year for the bigger cuts in the spending, or should they be doing it now?
Now, I'm kind of embarrassed for some in the GOP for them to be assuming that the American public believes that this is a serious discussion when we're talking only about $54 billion in cuts that they have on the table. Certainly that's better than the $4 billion that the Democrats are proposing. But no, we need to be looking more along the lines of a Rand Paul $500 billion cut. And granted that's a more long-term than just these continuing resolutions and the cuts that we need to make there to sustain our government. But no, we need much greater cuts and a more pro-growth development, pro-industry agenda being plugged into these budgets in these coming days. Certainly much more than the $60 billion or $54 billion cut that's on the table.
So in essence, are you disappointed then that when Paul Ryan was on this program, he said, all right, we got to deal with last year's business because the Democrats didn't pass a budget. But he says in April they're going to deal with entitlement reform, deal with the bigger cuts. Do you think politically it would be advantageous? Mike Pence says, let's have a fight right now. Do you think they should fight for all the cuts they want now and not wait till next year?
Absolutely. They need to be bold and strong, and they need those still spines, and they need to keep Americans believing that the GOP principles will be able to be those things when they're plugged in appropriately to get the economy back on the right track. We're going to lose faith in the party if we just take these little tiny baby steps, million here, billion there to start ratcheting down a $14 trillion debt. No, we need to bite off some big chunks today, and if that takes a fight, then hopefully the GOP leadership is willing to fight for America's future.
It seems like there's a political calculation out there that if the Democrats, it seems like they were pushing for a government shutdown because I think they thought that it'd be advantageous. The president punted when he presented his budget. And do you think they're being timid because they're afraid of this idea that they'll be blamed if the government shuts down? Do you think it would be the right thing to shut the government down, at least non-essential services, while they fight for those? Again, I agree with you. I think billions are nothing compared to the trillions. Do you think that maybe they're just making a political calculation here?
Well, they certainly should not be assuming that capitulating to this president who seems quite disinterested, really, in what the debt is going to do to our country. If the president were more interested in it, I think he would be the one showing the leadership skills that are needed in order to start ratcheting down the debt, and we're not seeing that from President Obama. So hopefully the GOP knows that, through the midterm elections, we elected even more Republicans in order to engage in an agenda that would put the country back on the right track. So, no, hopefully they're strong enough, they're bold enough to do what the American public has sent them to Washington to do. That's get the economy back on the right track by cutting spending and allowing more of a pro-growth, pro-private sector agenda to be engaged in D.C.
All right, Governor, good to see you. Thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
And coming